All right, let's just jump right in. We're talking about one of the most foundational texts in all of Western culture, the Book of Genesis. But here's the thing. What if its very first story isn't actually one story at all? What if it's two? And believe me, they are incredibly different from each other.
And yeah, that's the big question we're tackling here. It's kind of wild, but tucked away in plain sight, the opening of Genesis gives us two completely distinct, back-to-back stories of how everything began. They've got different styles, a different order of events, and they even call God by different names. So let's break it down.
So first up, we've got Genesis 1. The best way to think about this one is like a massive, wide-angle camera shot of the entire cosmos. It's this grand, poetic, and super orderly story of how the whole universe was built, all laid out in a perfect 7-day week.
What's so amazing here is the rhythm of it all. You can just feel this powerful, logical progression building up. Day 1, boom, there's light. Day 2, the sky. Day 3, we get land and plants. It just keeps building, step by step, from the absolute basics of the universe all the way to the complex life that fills it, with humanity as the grand finale on day 6.
So the way this all happens is absolutely crucial. God is like this cosmic architect who creates everything just by speaking it into existence. Let there be light, and it happens. And the order is super clear. Plants come first, then the animals, and then, right at the end, humanity. And notice, male and female are created together at the same time. The whole thing reads like a majestic poem, and the creator is just called simply God. And this line, this is the mic drop at the end of the first story. After those 6 days of work, everything is done, it's perfect, it's orderly, and it is declared very good. It's a stamp of absolute completion. The big cosmic blueprint is finished. But just when you think, okay, that's it, story's over, everything changes. The very next verse hits, and it's like the camera suddenly crash zooms from the edge of the universe right down to a handful of dust on the earth.
And welcome to Genesis 2. This is a totally different vibe. This isn't a story about creating galaxies. This is a hands-on, down-in-the-dirt drama about making the first people and their home, the Garden of Eden. Just look at where this one starts. The world is totally barren, just waiting for rain. And the first thing created isn't light. It's a single man, Adam. And he's physically sculpted from the dust of the ground. Then God literally breathes life into his nostrils. I mean, it's such an intimate, physical act. Only after the man is made does God plant a garden for him.
And this part here is just pure storytelling. First, we get a problem. God says, hey, it's not good for this guy to be alone. So, as a potential solution, God creates animals and brings them to Adam. But nope, not the right fit. So then, in what's almost like a moment of divine surgery, God puts the man to sleep, takes a rib, and literally builds the woman. This story is all about finding relationship, about connection right from the get-go. Okay. So we've got the huge cosmic story and this really intimate human one. Now for the really fun part. Let's put them right next to each other and see just how different they are.
I mean, the contrast is just staggering, right? Genesis 1 is cosmic. Genesis 2 is earthly. In the first story, God creates by speaking. In the second, the Lord God, a much more personal name, is working with his hands. He's forming and breathing and building. One is a majestic poem, the other is a gripping personal drama.
And this table, this right here, is probably the biggest difference of all. It's a flat-out contradiction. In Genesis 1, the order is plants, then animals, and humans are the absolute last thing created. But in Genesis 2, the order is completely flipped. You get the man first, then the plants in the garden, then the animals, and finally, the woman. They simply can't both be a literal chronological timeline of events.
So that leads us to the million-dollar question. Why? Why would a culture's foundational text kick off with two different, even conflicting stories? Well, the consensus among scholars is that this wasn't a mistake. It's because we're actually reading two different traditions from two different times woven together.
Think of it this way. The ancient editors of Genesis took two older, really important stories and put them both right at the beginning. That first, cosmic story, scholars often link it to a priestly source. It's all about order, structure, a distant god. The second, earthy story, that's from an older tradition, sometimes called the Yahweh source, which shows a much more personal, hands-on God and focuses on human relationships. So instead of picking one over the other, the editors gave us both, presenting two complementary truths, one about our grand place in the cosmos and another about our most fundamental personal connections.
And maybe that's the whole point.
What if, instead of giving us one single rigid answer, the text starts by holding two different perspectives in tension? One cosmic, one personal. One about divine order, one about human connection. Maybe it's suggesting that, from the very beginning, understanding who we are isn't about finding one simple answer, but about being able to hold multiple complex truths all at the same time. Something to think about, right?